So, which boot should you choose? The adidas X Crazyfast Plus or the Nike Mercurial Vapor 15 Elite? Well, in today's video, I'll compare them head to head to hopefully help you decide which is the right boot for you. And also, I'll touch a little bit on how the Vapor 15 compares to the Crazyfast 0.1. But the thing is that even though the Vapors are 260 euros and these are 300 euros, it's not as straightforward of a choice as you'd maybe think, choosing between these two. So let's get into it, and hopefully by the end of this video, you'll know which of the two boots to buy, or something else, from the link to Unisport right up there. Let's do it. Well, let's start looking at the uppers, which is probably where you'll find the biggest, at least immediate difference between the two boots. Actually, they share kind of the same concept, both having mesh-based uppers with internal support cages that have these cutouts for freedom of movement, but also to provide enough structure and stability for your foot. But that's kind of also where the comparisons stop, because the Aero Opacity Speedskin Plus upper on the Crazyfast Plus is just a lot thinner and lighter and more extreme than what we see on the Vapor Posit Plus upper on the Vapors. Because here you have a very open mesh, which is then covered by a single layer of very thin TPU silicone film. And then of course you have this suede, like very thin support cage on the inside to give you the support that adidas thinks you need. But it is very minimal, and in general, as you can see, the light shines through the upper, it is thin. It is very, very thin. Now, the Vapors, on the other hand, and the Vapor Posit Plus upper is just a little bit thicker. The weave is tighter, it feels a little bit more rich on the textile mesh. Then on the inside, you have this airy, lofted mesh for a little bit of a dampened, softer sensation on your foot. You have a slightly thicker, more structured internal support cage. And then, of course, you have the Nike Skin silicone film on top for protection and weatherization as well. And because of the different uppers, you also just get a very different experience wearing the two boots on foot. If we start with the X's, they are just so extremely thin and light and minimal, so you get this very second skin, almost paper thin-like experience that's just super soft and pliable, to the point where it just takes to the shape of your foot without any questions asked. I mean, there's just nothing, no structure, no nothing in the way of the boot. You can throw whatever foot shape at it and it just obeys. It just wraps around your foot. So it's got this very barefoot-like sensation, this super free, I'm not wearing anything feel for good and bad. Because structure and support is not what the X does best. It's more free. Now the Mercs, on the other hand, they do definitely have this thicker feel, a more rich feel to the upper, where you just get the feeling that there's more body to it. That also means that there's definitely a more snug sensation around the foot. It's still super soft and pliable, that's not the problem, but you do get a tighter, more sock-like sensation in the Mercurials. Now when it comes to lockdown, I also do feel that there's more structure, more support, and the upper, at least, definitely feels more responsive than in the X Crazyfast Pluses. And you can kind of paint the same picture when it comes to the weight. The Mercurials are roughly 190 grams, these are around 170 grams, which means that both are more than light enough. It's just that one is more extreme than the other. These are super light, super free, super minimal, whereas these are a bit more supportive, a bit more responsive, and probably also a little bit more on the comfortable side. So it depends on what you want. And you can say the same thing for the touch. You probably get the picture by now, but the X Crazyfast Plus is just extremely thin, giving you this very, very barefoot-like sensation on the ball that's just super close and very, very direct. There's also a little bit of natural texture from the material, but there's definitely a much more tactile sensation of grip and friction in the Mercurials. You just feel, you can hear it, there's just more. Now obviously the upper is also very thin, you do get very close to the ball in these, but you do also feel that there is this little bit more material between your foot and the ball in a Mercurial. And I would say that when it comes to that very raw, one-to-one, super barefoot-like sharp dribbling sensation, these might be more nimble and ballet dancer-like and direct. But that doesn't necessarily make them automatically better, because they might be too direct for some people, in which case I think that the Mercurial might be a little bit better balanced and have a more general, wider appeal, because it's close, but also takes away the worst sting on the ball. You'll probably also see a difference in the way the two boots fit. The X Crazyfast Plus here comes with the classic standard U-throat and tongue construction, whereas the Mercurials have this more modern one-piece Flyknit sock-like construction, which definitely adds a much more smooth transition from boot to foot and is really nice, but it also adds a bit more of a, significant tighter sensation on the top of your foot. I personally like it a lot though. But on the other hand, the X just offers a bit more, I would say, adjustability when it comes to the fit, because you can open up, you can tighten the opening a little bit more to really match the exact shape of your foot. And also, it's just a little bit easier to get on. Not that it matters much, but it is. But in general, to me, it feels like the X is a little bit more accommodating because you can really adjust the way they fit you and free, compared to the tighter and more snug sensation all around the foot in the Mercurial. And while both boots definitely do a very solid job of accommodating to most foot shapes, it does feel as if there's just a little bit more width in the forefoot of the X, maybe because of the shape, the slightly more curved anatomical shape in the X, compared to the slightly more straight and narrow fit through the midfoot in the Mercurial, and also the slightly more narrow pointy toe box here. Again, both will do well, even with wide feet, but just keep that in mind. And again, you can adjust these if you need a little bit more width or need them to be tighter. When it comes to the size, I found that going true to size in both of them was the best decision, so that's what I recommend that you do as well. We should probably also talk a little bit about the outsoles though, where the TLDR is that we're talking about two of the most aggressive responsive toolings on the market. Now, if you want to jump a bit more into the details, the X comes with the speed frame tooling that has this slightly raised toe and also this really stiff aero plate insert in the forefoot, versus that 3/4 length Zoom airbag in the Mercurials. Now, without getting too nerdy, I do feel that the X is slightly edged when it comes to that responsive, snappy feel of the outsole itself. And also that sensation of kind of being lifted up a little bit and rolled onto your toes in the X is just very nice when it comes to feeling ready. Now, don't get me wrong, the Mercurials are very snappy. They do feel very responsive. But that Zoom airbag just adds a little bit of a squishy, bouncy sensation that to me feels a little bit like a more cushioning comfort element rather than an explosive forward propulsion thing. It just makes you feel very much connected to the boot, but for me the X's are just ever so slightly faster. Now, as for the studs, I do think that the ones on the Mercurial are a little bit better, especially when we're talking speed, not only in linear directions. They feel a little bit more explosively versatile, so to speak, going in all directions compared to the X's. But I mean, it's a close thing. And seriously, guys, we're at the point where both boots feel so good and so aggressive that, in my book, you can't really make a bad decision here. And maybe that is a great way to put it. You can't really make a bad decision buying either of these, because they are both top boots and they both feel very fast in their own right. But I will say this, that if I'm looking for a classic raw hardcore speed boot, I'm probably gonna go for the X Crazyfast Plus, because it's just so unbelievably light on foot, feels so free, and has that classic extreme speed boot vibe. Is it worth then the extra 40 euros compared to the Vapors? Well, if you want the extreme and you're ready to pay for it, well, you will get extreme. Whereas on the other hand, the Vapors feel more comfortable, they feel a little bit wider, they feel more locked in, and probably also have a slightly wider general appeal than the X's, because they're just not as extreme. I will also say this though, I promised to touch on the X Crazyfast 0.1s. They're also 260 euros, just like the Mercurials, and they kind of sit somewhere in between the Pluses and the Vapors, because they're still super thin, they're still very light, they offer that one-piece construction with the prime knit color here, and still they feel somewhat a little bit more speed oriented, again, compared to the Vapors. Both fast, both great speed boots, but just somewhere in the middle. That's just my opinion. But guys, what do you think? Are you going for the Polo 1s or the Vapors or the Pluses or something else? Let me know in the comment section right down below. Remember that you can buy all of the boots in the link to Unisport right over there. Make sure to subscribe to the channel with the notifications on. And with those words, I'll be signing off. But cheerio.